you could make one more change, something that just a pet peeve, a hobby horse, something that you've always thought about the NFL that you would want to change. It's not like it doesn't have to be like a high level item here.
Yeah. I just think we got to remember, Will, that football is a physical game. It's part of the reason why people tune in each week,
Yep.
the warrior mentality, right? Like, I'm all about player safety, right? But this is what separates football from every other sport. And I don't know if you've been on X lately. There's been a big debate about whether NBA players can play in the NFL or NFL players can play in the NBA. And I always say this: the Oklahoma drill makes NBA players or makes basketball players because and for people that don't know what the Oklahoma drill
they
is,
don't want to deal with it.
There's two different versions. Usually it's an O lineman, D lineman, head up, a running back and linebacker. And at the snap, everybody just collides into each other. The linebacker tries to tackle the running back tries to evade them, and the O lineman tries to block the defensive lineman. And there's another version where you're literally laying on your back. As soon as the whistle blows, you both have to get up. There's two guys, one guy blocks, one guy is trying to defeat the block. Then there's another linebacker and running back, and they go at it, right? That drill, we always like to say as football players, make basketball players.
Right.
Those are the drills where guys are like, nah, this isn't for me. I'm not about this life.
I'm getting the layup line, yeah.
Yeah. Or they're counting dudes in line to see who they're going to go against, right?
Yeah.
That is what makes basketball players, essentially. So I thought it was hilarious that Austin Rivers was saying that 30 guys could potentially play in the NFL. And he was like, we've seen examples of it. My thing is, he brought up a couple tight ends. Let's not forget that Antonio Gates was like an all-state, I think almost all-American tight end. Like, he could have played anywhere at tight end in football, but he wanted to play basketball. He wanted to go to a school where he could play both, right? So let's not forget that. Tony Gonzalez, same thing. He was like all-state in football too. So, like, you using those guys as example make no sense. I might give you the Jimmy Graham one because I think Jimmy played in high school, but he didn't play football, I think, until his like senior or junior year at Miami, right? But he still has a background of playing football, right? So I think the physical mentality, I know a lot of NBA players took offense to that, but it's real, right? Because you got to look at how the NBA is officiated and how guys are like, there's flopping in the NFL, but it's not like the NBA. Like, the only time you can flop in the NFL literally is like around the pile when the guy like kind of you might shove a guy and then you wait for him to retaliate and then you just like flop back to get him. But in the NBA, like, you're flopping while you're dribbling the ball. You're flopping while you're playing. Like, if you do that in the NFL and you give up a touchdown, that's on you. Like, you know what I'm saying? At worst, you're giving up 2 points, but in the NFL, it could go for a touchdown. So there's no flopping, right? So I just think the mentality's a lot different, right? So I'm not saying there's guys that could, be in the NFL and could go play in the NBA right now. I think that's absurd to think. Just like I think it's absurd for guys to think they could leave the NBA right now and go play football. So
I thought Chris Long had a great take on it, where he said, "Dude, like, NBA players aren't making it through training camp. You're getting screened out by coaches.
It through one day of training camp,
right? It's like 95 degrees. You're in like full pads. You were sweating. You're getting screamed at. You're like and it's just insanely physical. And it's a different lifestyle. It's a different game, and it's just way more physical. And then the other thing, like, I think it was Kendrick Perkins, like, gave out a list. He's
he
my
was
number one
one.
He's like, Jalen Suggs. It's like, what? Jalen Suggs? What are you talking about? He's like, he
was a good quarterback, but you thinking he could be a quarterback in the NFL right now?
Yeah, like, if you're going to make the argument, I think you have to. The only way to make the argument for NBA players who could potentially be immediate NFL players is they would be a tight end who jumps in, is a red zone threat at tight end.
And that's split him out. He's not blocking or any of that.
Right. And you're not blocking. And even that is just to assume you're just going to like pick up, like, learn a playbook and run routes all of a sudden. I mean,
perfect example. Draymond Green went out for the football team. And I remember there was a clip where they split him out and a DB that was half his size hemmed him up at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, basketball, you can't do that. We can actually put our hands on you in football. So there's the mentality that's different right now. Again, I think you have to take it with a grain of salt because I think what he was referencing, and I don't want to speak for Austin Rivers, is like guys that would train for like, probably maybe up to a year to be able to do it. Because that's what those other guys had to do. But I think there's probably good enough athletes that maybe if a NFL guy trained for basketball just for a year, he could maybe be the 10th or 11th guy on the bench. right?
I think if you gave I think if you gave certain NFL players, and again, were you a good? Did you play basketball before? Like, can you
Correct.
shoot? You know,
Got like a guy like T. Higgins. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, but I mean, it also depends on you know, like if you're talking about 10 years ago, it would have been totally different because you could have big guys who jump in there as you know power forwards or centers.
Correct.
Now you're gonna need to be a shooter, like
For sure.
a three and D guy. Or, you know, I mean, it's just a different game. Yeah, but I think there's plenty of NFL players if you gave them a year to train and play basketball where they could make the transition. Same thing with basketball players, but it's not going to be this like the NBA. The NBA players aren't just leaving to go be NFL players. They ain't happening.
For
I mean,
sure. Like,
yeah,
no way.
it would go poorly.
Yeah.
I would. I'm trying to think if I would change anything. I think I would like to see. I want some funky. Like I want the 4th and 25 thing instead of onside
You want
kicks.
the XFL thing?
I want the XFL rule.
UFL.
You can the UFL, yeah, where you can go for it on 4th and 25 to try and pick up at the end of games. I think that would it would change strategy. It would bring so much into play, and it would be insane to watch that sort of thing happening. I'd like to see it for a season just to see how it was reviewed, how it was embraced by the NFL, how it was embraced by fans, and how it was embraced by teams. And I think if they like it, I think it's something we could see more long term.
Yeah, it would definitely make, I think, the game a little bit more exciting from the fan perspective. I don't know if players would love it as much because I think there's something to be said, like throughout the game when you're beating somebody down. Now all of a sudden they can go for it on 4th and 25 and get the ball back twice. We saw that literally in the UFL this year where a team was down by 2 scores, but were able to come back because of the 4th and 20-25 rule. So it's just like, on one hand, yes, it would bring a little bit more excitement, you know, fan base wise, but players would be like, this is some BS. We've been whooping them all game long, and then they convert 2 4th and 20-25s. Now they're right back in the game.
yeah, no, that's fair. It's like you feel like, especially if you're a fan watching it and your team's up 2 scores, you're thinking, all right, we had this game in hand.
Correct.
And all of a sudden, the 4th and 25. Although it feels like the modern NFL, we get these comebacks like every week anyway, where it doesn't matter how much you're up, the other team is like in the game.